You're rushing to get the kids ready for school. You drop the cereal bowl and it shatters into a million pieces. You instantly hear your inner critic. You're so clumsy. You can't even get the cereal. Does this sound familiar? Hey, ladies, welcome back. This is episode number 3 of Not Just Moms, where we dive a little deeper into who we are beyond mom and to figure out who you want to be. I'm your host, Stephanie No, life and mindset coach and fellow mom. Today, we're going to talk about one of the most overlooked skills that I think is essential in our daily lives as individuals and as a mother. That is self-compassion. As women, we feel like we have to bring our A game to everything we do. There's a lot of pressure to be performing at our best, especially in this day and age of Pinterest and perfect Instagram grids. Not only do we have to excel at work or business, but we have to have the perfect homes with white couches and countertops and bake fresh cookies for our kindergarteners class. Amy Westervelt best summed it up when she said, "We expect women to work like they don't have children and raise children as if they don't work." As a society, we have to do better and create more support for mothers. It's because of this lack of structural support when it comes to maternity leave or support for childcare, mothers are left with carrying a very heavy load. But let's not focus solely on external factors. Let's turn our attention inward to what we can control. This is where self-compassion comes in. Before we can change the infrastructure and lack of systems, we have to learn to support ourselves internally first. If you listen to my previous episode, I'm all about trying to find the easiest and efficient way to do things. To me, the simplest way to support ourselves is learning the practice of self-compassion. The very basics of life coaching is centered around the idea that it's not the circumstance or situation that causes our feelings, but it's what we're thinking and believing about the circumstance that creates our feelings. Now, you might be wondering, why is this important? Our feelings are what drives our actions, and ultimately, our actions are what create our current state of reality. If you are listening to this podcast, you are most likely an ambitious mom who is probably really hard on yourself. Self-compassion is one of the tools that I use to help relieve the pressure and stress that comes with our role as mother and caretaker. Ultimately, our actions are what create our reality. So if we are constantly indulging in negative self-talk, that's going to create a very different reality than if we are being kind and practicing self-compassion. According to Dr. Kristen Neff, who wrote the book on self-compassion, self-compassion means you are kind and understanding when confronted with your failings. Let's explore what self-compassion truly means. When you show yourself self-compassion, it is accepting your humanness. I am not perfect. After all these years, I'm finally learning how to accept that. Sometimes we think shaming or belittling ourselves is effective, but it's quite the opposite, at least for me. I didn't realize how mean I am to myself until my daughter pointed it out. With motherhood, there are different levels of difficulty and challenges that you come across. When they're babies, it feels hard because of all the lack of sleep and the spit up and the constant neediness. However, as your kids grow up, the difficulty evolves because you suddenly realize that, wow, here are these little humans who I'm helping to shape and instill values and morals in. And you start to wonder, are you doing enough? right? Am I a hypocrite? Am I doing what I say? Am I modeling the behavior? So one night over dinner, I realized I forgot to pay a bill, and obviously there was like a penalty, and I was pretty upset. And I mumbled under my breath, or so I thought, oh, like, I can't believe I did that. What a dummy. And my then 5-year-old walked by with the saddest and most shocked face. And she said, Mommy, you're being so mean to yourself. And she walked away. But honestly, I don't even know what I said. It was such a reflex for me. I didn't even hear how unkind I was being to myself. And that's the thing about our brains. It's wired to be super efficient. And what's more efficient than to do the same thing over and over again? If it worked once, it's going to learn the pattern and do it again. Growing up, I somehow learned the pattern of this negative self-talk. And at first, I'm sure I thought it was motivating or a way of getting myself to do the things that needed to be done. But ultimately, in adulthood, I've learned that it's not effective anymore. So that's where self-compassion comes in. Self-compassion is free and available to all of us. It just takes a little practice and reprogramming of our brains. According to Dr. Kristen Neff, there are 3 elements of self-compassion. It's self-kindness, humanity, and mindfulness. Let's break down each of these elements further. So number 1, self-kindness. Self-kindness is to be warm and supportive towards ourselves versus judgmental or shaming. This is what allows us to feel safe. You're able to just be there for yourself. Being able to create your own safety is the most powerful thing. Number 2, humanity. The humanity part is how connected we feel. Do we constantly feel like we are alone? When we feel connected, this is us accepting our failure or imperfection as a part of the human experience. It's knowing that we're not alone. We all feel this way from time to time. We are all humans. Lastly, number 3, mindfulness. Mindfulness is being able to accept the present moment, which prevents us from spiraling into the negative thoughts and feelings. It's the ability to take a step back and look at what we're feeling and put it into perspective, almost as if we were talking to a friend. If you're a perfectionist type, practicing self-compassion is a game changer. I always struggle with follow through because I'm so scared and stuck in the trap of not wanting to make a mistake, or the classic line of it's not good enough. However, as I started to practice self-compassion in my own life, it really has changed my life. I'm not saying this to be dramatic. For me, when I think of life coaching, I feel like when you unlock one area of your life, it typically flows to other areas. And this is the same concept. Once I was kinder and more accepting of myself, I realized I started to extend that same compassion towards my kids, my husband, strangers even. It starts to have a ripple effect. Before we end today's episode, I want to leave you with the 3 sentences I tell myself when I make a mistake or run into some bumps in the road. I tell myself that, of course, you're, insert whatever emotion. So, of course, you're upset. It's understandable. This activates the self-kindness component. Then I follow it with, you're not the only one who's ever made this mistake, which is the humanity part. It reminds me that I'm not alone. As much as I feel like I'm alone in it, there are others who have come before me that probably felt the same way. And lastly, I hold space for myself and allow myself to feel whatever it is that I'm feeling. I don't try to rush myself and tell myself to get over it. I imagine myself talking to a friend. So, what would you tell your best friend in that moment? Remember, you are worthy of love and kindness, starting with yourself. Try it this week and let me know how it goes for you. Connect with me on Instagram or Facebook at Stefano Coaching. I would love to hear from you. If this episode resonated with you, share it with a girlfriend who you know could use a little self-compassion in their life. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next week. Bye.